Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel. I am Mr. Anomalous, and earlier today I uploaded a video talking about how I'm going to be doing some bushcraft type videos, or for this, much more close to the whole SHTF deal. And today I'd actually like to show you my bug-out bag, but before I do that, I want to talk to you about one of the bigger points of this video, and that is that cheap, or at least inexpensive, does the job. This bug-out bag isn't really a bug-out bag so much as one that I just kind of carry around in my car with me, but the vast majority of the stuff that was in this I put together out of stuff that was already laying around the house, in the garage. I didn't buy anything new for anything in this bag, but it still has more than enough stuff to help me and my family along in case of any emergency. So a lot of bug-out bags have these really big kind of tactical backpacks. Some of them are made out of leather pouches, which both of those obviously have their appeal, but I didn't have any of that. So what I have is instead this little bag that I got from the hospital that they gave to us after my wife gave birth to carry some baby stuff around. It's got a cute little chicken on it, or I don't actually know what that is, but that's not really the point. It's a fairly sturdy bag. It has mesh pockets on the outside, but it's more than enough room for everything that I've put together. So first is this dinky little flashlight that's also a phone charger. It is charged with the handle, and these lights are LEDs, so you can probably crank that along for a long time. The phone charger isn't really doesn't fit any of our cell phones, but I can find an adapter for that pretty easily. And next up on the list is a little miniature Altoids container. Still has some Altoids in it, but it's also there to help protect my matchbox. I don't have any stormproof matches, or I haven't made any yet, so at least then we have some pretty well protected and put away matchboxes, or just one matchbox for now. Next is some moleskin that was just laying around in a first aid kit. We have some feminine hygiene products for the purpose of which they were originally designed, but they also are good, just particularly tampons, for helping stop blood. They're not the best, but they'll definitely do the trick. And of course, the whole key is to packing your bug-out bag with what you need is versatility. There's also some Q-tips and some toilet paper in there. We have a bit of parachute cord, which of course everyone needs apparently, but let me point out, while I have this parachute cord, the main appeal of parachute cord that I don't hear get talked about very often is the strands on the inside, or at least one of the greater advantages. These strands on their own are more than strong enough, or even just 2 or 3 put together are more than strong enough to hold up, like say, a tarp, or a piece of cloth, or something that you're trying to make a shelter out of, or to do some lashings all on their own, even if they're not put together in this great big bundle. So really, this is, I think, about 10 foot, maybe not, about 10 foot, maybe even just 5, doesn't really matter, of parachute cord. But if I take this canvas, or whatever that is, kind of cover off, I have quite a lot more string. I don't hear that get talked about too often. This, I originally started to collect lint for the purpose of starting those blacksmithing fires out there, and I still do use them for that, but they also, of course, serve a purpose for just starting fires anywhere, obviously. And this is a lot of lint. This will start quite a bit of fires, or at least help me start quite a bit of fires, and this is like a couple days worth of dryer lint. So I figured that rather than just throwing it all away, if I just put some of it away in a bag, separate from the matches, because lint laying around on its own is already a fire hazard. But I just take a clump of it and put it in this bag, or even in a different bag elsewhere, to save for in case I want or need to start a fire, rather than just throwing it away. We have a first aid kit, which contains some band-aids from yet another kind of full-sized home first aid kit. Some Vaseline, which serves a lot of purposes, kind of just as a lubricant, as chapstick even, for when you have sore chapped lips, but I probably don't need to tell you that. I have some burn pads, but I also have some acetaminophen, some ibuprofen, and some Tums in here, and also some allergy medication, because I have some pretty nasty hay fever. I don't want to be caught out in a situation where I'm all by myself or just with my family, there. Yet another little matchbox. A notebook for a couple of different purposes. First, I mean, I used it for stuff other than this for a while, but deeper in I have a checklist of stuff I'd like to add to the kit. It's getting pretty close. This isn't the complete kit, I'm just showing you what I have so far. But it can also serve purposes for taking notes, you know, just if you're trying to find your way out of wherever you're lost in. And it can also, of course, be used for more fire starting. So that's why I carry one of these around with me. There's still quite a lot of paper in there that I haven't written on yet that could be used for that. And last but not least, some garbage bags. These are very versatile little things that you maybe not realize. Oh, I have a pen for my notebooks too, as well. But these little garbage bags can be pretty useful in a lot of different ways. They can be used for raincoats. They can be used to put at least an extra layer between you and the ground. They can be used for a little bit of shelter, admittedly somewhat flimsy. They can used to be collect water, both kind of just putting the open bag or the opening of the bag in a stream, or for kind of distilling, if you will. So I have 3 of these, and I have some little Ziploc bags that are, kind of serve the same purposes but smaller. And that's it. That's everything. And I don't have to tell you that that's more really than enough stuff to help me or my family get through quite a lot of situations. But also let me point out that a lot of the helpful stuff, or stuff that would help us out in that situation, is not just in the Bugout bag, but on my person in general. So let me put all this back in here. That's not everything that I have. I also have a... Hold on, let me dig it out of my pocket. I have a utility razor. I need to replace the razor blade on it. It's not particularly sharp, but it's still sharp enough to do some of the fine cutting. I got that for $2. It's, you know, it hasn't broken on me yet. I've lost it for a few weeks once, but that's it. I've had this classic old-timer folding pocket knife for, I think, 10 years. And I'm 21 years old. I've had it since I was sometime between I was 10 or 12. And it has never once failed me. It's always done, you know, it's pretty hard for a simple knife like this to fail you, but I've sharpened it a lot. The blade still holds. Its edge retention isn't magnificent, but a simple little folder like this that can cost you $10 or $15 is well worth the investment, I think. Now, I also have an admittedly probably insufficient multi-tool. Now, I feel like Leatherman has kind of planted the idea in people's heads that you have to spend $100 on a multi-tool for it to be good, and there's a certain amount of legitimacy to the view. This thing cost me $4 from Walmart. And yeah, I do need a better multi-tool. I understand that this isn't the highest quality device I could have possibly bought, but the point of this video is that this will serve it'll do its job, and it's unlikely to just fall to pieces. I've mostly used the pliers, and the pliers do the job just as they're supposed to do. I've used the wire cutters does its job exactly as it's supposed to do. The little knife here, surprisingly sharp, has used it for everything. It has done everything that I've used it for. I've used the screwdrivers on it, and those have all done the trick just fine. But because it's kind of cheaply designed, it's a little bit flimsy and awkward to get tools out. Like if I want, for example, just the screwdriver in there, I can't reach. I have to pull a bunch of other tools and to pull the screwdriver out. And then another big thing for this cheap multi-tool is that it doesn't lock very well. And the screwdriver will do its job with enough effort, but I have to struggle quite a bit, because if I apply a certain amount of force, like if I pretend my finger's a screw, it folds pretty easily. So there's a lot of value in somewhat better multi-tools. But again, cheap will do the job. This cost me $2. This cost me $10 or $12, 10 or 12 years ago, quite a long time ago. That multi-tool cost me $5, and none of those tools have broken or failed for what I've used them with. And last but not least, I have this knife. I don't carry this knife with me everywhere I go, but I could, because this is a very good knife. It's a sweet spot in size. I'm not going to pull the camera out or the phone out from where I've got it to show you, but this knife plus its holster I have on my belt, I can put it in there, I can pull my shirt over, and it's completely inconspicuous. I don't think concealable is really the right term. When I hear the word concealable weapons, I think about handguns, and I don't really think of this as a weapon, but only as a tool. But this knife is not heavy enough to do chopping, but it's solid enough and of high enough quality steel to do some batoning with. And it's also a gift from my father-in-law. I apologize about that. My apparently my phone's camera has a limit for 10 minutes, even if it has enough space. So I apologize about that. I could just edit these clips together. But I'm almost done. This knife is, like I was saying, it was handmade by a blacksmith at a Mountain Man Rendezvous in Oregon. And it cost $35. I couldn't tell you exactly what the steel is made out of, but I can tell you after using it for some batoning, and for some skinning and making a couple of feather sticks, that it's a very good knife. I haven't had to sharpen it since. It still has a very nice, very sharp blade, and I expect it's made out of some pretty good steel based off of just my use of it. But again, that's only $35. And I will point out, I did say that I batoned with it, and I did, but it still isn't quite big enough. That was quite a lot of effort. If you want a knife that's really good for a bug-out bag, you're going to want something that's a bit bigger. And if it's sitting there in your bug-out bag, you don't really have to worry about that. Like I said, this one is very inconspicuous. It has a low profile, and it's almost and its sheath, its holster are completely covered by my shirt, my button-down shirts. And so I'd say that all in all, everything here, the bag included, cost me less than $50 at one point. Like I said, this is all stuff that was just laying around the house, around the garage, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, etc. that was just not being put to use. So the only thing I did was I put in the effort to look for that kind of stuff. And nothing there individually cost me more than $20, right? The knife was about $35 or $40, but I didn't buy it. But even so, I'd say that's very good value. So that's beyond that, I don't really have anything else to show you. Like I said, that bag is not complete quite yet. I'd like to add a butane lighter, a map, a compass, and maybe one of those bigger knives I was talking about that could chop or be better used for batoning. But beyond that, I think it's safe to say that this, even with everything in it, it weighs less than a pound, maybe a little over a pound, if that. I think that's very reasonable to say that has just about everything I could ever need in it. If I was driving somewhere and maybe out of state and there was a snowstorm, there's enough stuff in there to start a fire, and I have the skills and the know-how how to start a wet fire. And of course, let me point out then, while I'm talking about that you can't really trust your equipment. You also have to trust your skills. It's not really, you can't just buy a bunch of this stuff or find a bunch of this stuff and throw it together and then not use it or not know how to use it. The reason I carry this with me in the car everywhere I go isn't necessarily because I suspect or I'm worried that I'll need it, but because I am carrying it around so that I have the opportunities to use everything within it, so that I know the kind of stuff that is in it down to a T, like to the point at which I want to have it so that it becomes instinct to pull that bag out and to use this sort of stuff in it. So that's that for this video. I know it was hastily put together, but just in the previous update video, I did say these videos were going to be easier for me to make. I'm not at home right now, so I can't really edit them very heavily. But yeah, you can expect a lot more of these videos. I might, when I am at home, there will be editings and outros and intros and all that kind of proper stuff. But until then, this is Mr. Anomalous.